Hi, everybody. Happy Saturday to you and welcome in. My name is Sarah. For those of you who have not had a chance to take a class with me before, I work for Beadalon, and I am here today to show you guys a really fun product or a project using Michael's products and Beadalon products together. And of course, all of the Beadalon products that are in this project you can find at Michael's. So it was probably a better way to say all that. Before we get started, though, I do want to kind of, my voice is kind of in and out. I'm getting over something, so I'm going to apologize in advance. Thank you for being understanding of the highs and lows that are in my voice at the moment. So today we're going to be making a sun catcher, and I feel like these are perfect all through the year, right? In the summer, we think of sun catchers. Some of my friends refer to them as rainbow makers. We think of them mostly in the spring and summer when we start to see all of the beautiful colors and things, and we're putting things out, you know, for our flowers and our spring and summer decorations. A lot of times your sun catchers and your chimes will go up. However, I tend to like my sun catchers in the fall and the winter as well, because they just kind of remind me of warmer days. The sun just kind of hits them a little bit differently in the fall and winter. So these are going to be perfect for all year. Don't think these are just limited to warm weather. These are relatively easy to make. I will warn you ahead of time, though, not everybody, and I say warn, but I think you should probably embrace this part. Not everybody's are going to turn out looking exactly the same. And that's because we're taking a thicker gauged wire and we're going to swirl it into a swirl shape. Unless you're feeling extra creative and you want to make it a different shape. But no two swirls are going to look the same. Even the ones that I make, they all look different. So I have several pieces of wire here so that I can try it out and pick the one that I like the best to wire wrap onto. This is a beginner friendly project. We're not really doing anything super hard here. And the beads, of course, you can choose any colors that you want to. Michael's has a great selection. So let's get started and I'll show you guys what we need for the project. Okay, I'm going to turn you around. And we are going to get right to it. All right, so for our project, the base of our design, just adjust my tripod just a little bit. So for the base of our design, we're using a thick wire for this. In fact, we are using 14 gauge artistic wire. Now this is just a sample or an example of the shape that we're going to make here. And you're going to need about 12 inches of this. And you're going to swirl this into whatever kind of shape that you want. It doesn't even have to be a circle. You can do literally anything with this. But 14 gauge is going to be probably the best gauge to start. So what do I mean by that? I mean that you're going to need 14 gauge or heavier to create the base. Okay, I would not go any smaller in gauge than the 14 gauge. You want that nice thick gauge. It's going to hold up. It's going to support all of the beads, and it's going to allow gravity not to pull it out of shape. Because remember, we're going to hang this up so that the sun can shine through our beautiful beads. So you definitely want a thick gauge wire. I've got 14 gauge. If you've got 16 gauge instead, that's perfectly fine. Okay, I'm using silver, but you can also use whichever color you've got or want. I've picked out some beads here. Now, originally these were on a card. And when I say card, I mean like one of these really cool hanging cards that Michael's has. This one had several different shades. Well, it's 3 different shades. There's like a pink, a medium purple, and then a darker purple. And I've seen these in Michael's. They're also like the blues and the greens. I almost went with the blues and the greens. That being said, you could pick any color that you wanted to use. We're going to use these as our rainbow makers. They're going to go all the way around our swirl, and then I'm going to hang from it because a lot of you that know me and have taken classes with me know that I like dangles more than anything. I attach a dangle to everything. So I'm going to use these beautiful hearts, and I'm going to hang one of these hearts from the bottom of our sun catcher right before we are finished with it. Okay, you're also going to need a couple of other pieces of wire. You're going to need some, let's see, 24 gauge wire. And I have suggested that you cut 2 pieces of 36 inches That just keeps you from working with a really, really long 6-inch piece of wire. It does take quite a bit of wire to work your way all the way around your Suncatcher. So it's easier for me, and probably easier for you as well, to cut your wire in half and use smaller pieces. So even if you want to cut smaller than the 36-inch pieces, that's perfectly fine. And then last but not least, for our wire, you're going to need 2 pieces of 22 gauge wire. I use German style wire just as my go-to. If artistic wire is your choice, that's fine. We're going to do just a little extra wire wrapping with this for the heart that goes on the bottom and for our little decorative piece that goes at the top that we can hang our Suncatcher from. All right, a couple of other things that we've not ever used in classes that I've done before that you're going to need a steel block. I've got a steel block here. Michael's has a steel block that you guys can grab if you don't have one. And I also, in the materials list, have listed a rubber hammer. I'm going to use a nylon hammer. Either one is going to work. You just don't want to use a metal hammer because we don't want to change the structure of our round wire. We're not flattening it. All we're doing is work hardening it. So rubber or nylon hammer is going to be perfect to work harden your Suncatcher. Okay. All right. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do is you want to cut about 10 inches or 12 inches, depending on the size, right? You want to cut, I think I cut my pieces in 12 inches of this 14 gauge wire. And the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with that loop. So I'm going to come in, and like I said, I've got 3 pieces of wire here. So any of these may turn out to be the one we use. A lot of times I make more than one of the swirls and then just pick the one I like the best, because sometimes they don't turn out exactly like I want them to. So just be patient with yourself and the wire. All right, so we're going to use our round nose pliers. Now, I know from this one you can tell we want a large loop here at the top. This large loop is where we are going to hang our Suncatcher. So I want it to be pretty big. So I'm going to use the back, towards the back of my round nose pliers. I'm going to grab the wire and I'm just going to turn a loop. You can see that's what I've got. I'm going to leave it in that P shape. I'm not going to break the neck on it and straighten up our wire. I'm going to leave it just like it is. But now I do want to put it back on the tool. And let's see, I'm going to move some things out of my way because I don't want the wire to get caught on anything. We're going to start forming this into the swirl or the spiral. And this is really going to be just kind of free form. That's why they don't all look the same every time. So to free form, you can hold on to it with your pliers this way. You can leave it on the pliers like this. I like to use my bent chain nose pliers, and I will just start to kind of curve the wire around, right? Or if it's too hard to start on the outside, you can always start on the inside, and we'll trim our loop off here. Okay. So let me show you what I mean. On this end, if you'll notice in our sample here, there isn't a loop, right? I've just cut it off. I'm going to put a loop on this end and then cut it off. So sometimes it's easier to start in the center of your spiral, but I have found that some people like it, find it easier one way or the other. I just want to be sure that everybody knows that no way is the right way. Okay, so you can just take it and start to kind of curve it around. And you'll notice I still have the wire on the tool. That really kind of helps for you to just make slow movements, right? To start bending that wire around. So I'm kind of pushing with my left hand and I'm kind of twisting with my right hand. You can see how it's starting to create that spiral. And then I can come in with my fingers as well and just guide the wire around, right? Now, it may not be perfect at first, and you may feel like you want to use a different piece of wire and start over again. That's fine, but it's just wire. So remember, you are the boss of the wire. You're going to be the one to ultimately determine what that shape is going to come out to look like, right? Just forming it with your fingers. And notice I make small movements. I'm not making really quick, big movements. I'm just doing very small slight bends in the wire. I'm not making any sharp bends or creases. I'm just kind of coaxing the wire into the shape that I want. Kind of twisting on the outside and the inside, right, to bring it around. Okay. And then if I see that there are some little places in it that I don't like, I can flatten those back out with my finger and then try again and kind of coax it back into that round shape, right? Okay, so this one's looking pretty good. Just be patient with it. And if you need to use more than one piece of wire, go for it. Do it until you get the shape that you want, okay? All right, now just kind of look at both of them to get kind of an idea. So they're similar, but they're not exactly the same, right? But that's okay. They all have their own personality. I am going to come in now with my cutter tool and trim off this loop, unless you just like it. You can leave the loop there if you want to, but I'm going to trim mine off. Okay. And now again, I can go ahead and curve that in a little bit more or leave it like it is. Just gentle coaxing to make the shape that you want. Then when you're satisfied with the shape that you've got, you want to take it and you want to put it on the steel block. We want to work harden this so that we can keep that shape. And the work hardening is really important because as you go and you work your way around the spiral, your fingers are going to heat up the wire. You're going to be pulling and tugging on it, even though you may not be meaning to, and it can pull it out of shape as you're wire wrapping around it. So you want to be sure that you work harden first. So we're going to put it down on our block, and then you're going to use your hammer, whether it is your rubber hammer or your nylon hammer, and you just want to tap all the way around, and you want to do both sides. I'm going to turn it over and do the other side as well. All right, so now that I've work hardened it, it is still bendable and flexible. We haven't done any kind of crazy magic on it to make it perfectly stiff. It is still a flexible bendable wire, but I'm confident that that shape is going to stay. And even if it does pull out of shape just a little bit, it's only going to be slight and I can move it right back into the shape that I want. Okay, so now we are going to take our swirl here and we're going to get ready to add our beads to this. And I'm going to add my beads in kind of a variant. In other words, I'm going to do kind of ombre, if you will. I'm going to start with the darker purple and I'm going to work my way around. I'm going to then work into the lighter purple and then end with the pink. And then there'll probably be some room on the inside for a couple more. That being said, you're probably, since everyone's are different, you're probably not going to use the exact same amount of beads as I do. So just keep that in mind. Okay, this is very fluid. You know, a lot can be different between yours and mine. So don't stress if you don't have enough room for all of the beads that I'm using, or if you've got way more. Okay, totally okay. So we're going to take one of our 36-inch pieces of 24 gauge wire, and I like to work from the outside towards the inside. Some people are going to want to start on the inside and work their way out. Okay, totally up to you. I just find that it's easier to start at the top, okay, and work my way around. My beads are going to go on the outer edge here, right, instead of on the inside. So I'm going to take my wire and I want to anchor this to the Suncatcher right up here next to my loop. So I'm going to lay it across the surface and I'm giving myself, you know, a little bit of a tail, about 2 inches, 1.5 inches. You don't want super long tail, but I do want to wire wrap this on. And I'm going to wire wrap about 10 times. So there's 6, 7. We'll just use up the wire here, right? All right, so I used up all of the wire of my tail. I'm gonna come in with my chain nose pliers. Where are my regular chain nose? Don't see them at the moment. We're just gonna use these and straighten all those up. I'm gonna trim off that little piece that's sticking out, okay? And now I'm gonna slide this over right up against our loop, okay? Now, I'm going to take my wire and kind of straighten it out and get it ready for a bead. So we are going to wire wrap the beads to the outer edge of our swirl component here. And there's actually 2 different ways that you can do this. I'm going to show you the way that I did it for the sample and that's in the picture, but I am going to talk about the other way. So you just want to put a bead on the end of your wire and you want to drop it down so that it lands down here on the surface of your component. Now, excuse me. I don't mind for mine to sit at an angle. In fact, I'm going to do it that way. I want all of my beads to kind of sit at, it's almost like a 45-degree angle. All of those beads are going to sit that way. If you don't like your bead to sit at an angle, you're going to want to pull your bead away from the component, right? Give it a bend in the wire and then bend on the other side of the wire. That's going to make your bead, mine's a little too far away from the component, but you get the idea. That's going to make your beads sit straight up and down on the outside edge of your thick gauge wire here. Okay. So that's why I say there's 2 different ways you can do this, and it does give it 2 totally different looks. I personally prefer the sitting at an angle. For one thing, I don't have to fuss with it as much. I can just go with it and enjoy the process, and I'm not stressing myself out. But if you are a perfectionist and you really want those beads to line up straight up and down, then please be my guest. It's going to be beautiful no matter what. I'm going to follow the same path of the wire for my wire wrapping. Notice that the wire here is coming from behind the component. I drop my bead down. Now I need to just follow the same path of the wire. So now I'm coming to the front of the component, right? We were going from behind to the front. We're wrapping in this direction. The bead is not going to change the path of the wire, right? So place that bead on the outer edge of the component, and then you just want to guide the wire around. You're going to wrap around a couple of times just to see. That's going to lock your bead in place. Okay. Your bead is now attached. It is going to move just a little bit. It all will kind of tighten up as we go. Normally, when I wire wrap onto other components, I only do maybe 3 or 4 wire wraps in between beads. But because of the shape and because of the way, you know what, actually, I want my beads to be on the inside. I'm looking at the sample picture and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, those beads are on the inside of the component. Either way, either way, okay, it's going to look amazing no matter which direction your beads are going. But yeah, let's put those to the inside. However, what I was saying was I want them spaced out evenly because I'm using a large bead here. 1 or 2 wraps between the beads is not going to be enough space. It's going to crowd my beads together and they may not even all fit on here the way I want them to. So 10 wraps in between beads is going to give you a nice amount of space. Your beads are going to be evenly spaced and they all have their own little place to sit. So I've already got 2 wire wraps here. I'm going to do, there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, oops, 9, and 10. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and add my bead to the outside. So I'm just going to stick with this outer edge thing. In the sample picture, the beads are sitting on the inside, like I mentioned, but I'm going to do them on the outside for this one. And I really don't think it makes any difference. Either way, it's going to look awesome. Those beads are going to be attached one way or another. So So it just goes to show the versatility here. So I'm going to pick up another bead. I'm going to drop it down, right? And then I'm going to bend the wire, and you can see that wire is going at an angle. My bead is sitting at about a 45-degree angle, maybe a little less, all right, or a little more. And I'm going to wire wrap. And this is going to be the process. We're going to go around the entire thing, adding our beads in the same way. Now, it will get a little tricky as we work towards the inside of our swirl because we're working in a smaller area. Just go slow. Don't get frustrated with it. If you get frustrated with it, put it down, walk away for a little bit, and then come back to it. But it is not worth getting upset over because this is supposed to be fun. It's always supposed to be fun, right? All right. And if you don't want to count your wire wraps, you're really looking to make about 1/4 of an inch between each one of your beads on the wire, not necessarily this space between the beads, but the actual space on the thicker gauge wire needs to be about 1/4 of an inch. Okay. So I'm going to pick up another purple, drop that down, bend my wire, and then wrap. Notice how I'm kind of holding all of the beads that I've done so far in my fingers. I'm holding those in place. And the reason that I'm holding them in place is because the very first few beads that you attach will want to kind of spin around on the component as you're working. The more beads you get attached, the less movement there's going to be. But as you're doing your wire wrapping, these guys are going to want to kind of travel, right, and bend around. So I'm just kind of holding everything in place as I go. And again, the more you add, the more stable they're all going to be. Okay, so I'm going to pick up another bead, drop that down, bend my wire, and wrap around. So the bigger your swirl, the more beads you're going to use. If your swirl is a little bit smaller than mine, you're definitely not going to use the same amount of beads that I'm using. And you guys don't even have to use the same shape that I'm using. You can fill this up with whatever beads you want to. You can use any of Michael's beads to do this. I prefer the sparkly ones with the facet just because they catch the light very nicely and are very, very sparkly. But you can use whatever you want to. And these little spaces that are in here, you can actually fill those in with some smaller beads. If you wanted to, really fill this up with tons of color, you absolutely could do that. So you've got a lot of options with this. This is a very suit to your needs and wants kind of project, right? You can alter this to make it really, truly yours, something that you really love. Add your own personal touch to it. And though this is not necessarily a jewelry project, still looks really beautiful in your booth. A lot of times if in craft shows that I've been to where they're outside, I have noticed people that have a lot of hanging things in their booth, even if they don't sell them, right? Sun catchers and chimes, things like that to hang. Just add a little extra sparkle and shine to your craft booth. Even if it's inside, right? If you've got a place to hang one of these, hang a few of them. Because they're not hard to make. They don't use up a whole lot of materials, and they add just a little touch of pizzazz to your area. All right, I'm gonna add one more dark purple, and then we are going to go to that lighter color. Okay, so drop the bead down, kind of holding on. I'm not holding these guys so much as I'm holding kind of the ones in the middle of the section that I've done so far. Wrapping them around. Oh, and you definitely could sell them. I'm not saying you can't sell them. I'm just saying they make great decoration. But I'm sure that if you know, if you put a price tag on them, they would probably sell as well. We have a hardware store here near where I live. And at the hardware store up near the registers, they have the most beautiful sun catchers and prisms, and they all have the most beautiful beads on them. And I always come away feeling very inspired. It's funny, you go to the hardware store to pick up whatever it is you're getting. It's definitely not necessarily jewelry related, but I come through that little section and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go home. I could make those myself. So yeah, and you definitely can. That's what we're doing. If you wanted to add little chimes to this, you could, right? So I've picked up a lighter color purple. So we're changing up the color a little bit here, giving it that kind of ombre effect. But if you don't want the ombre effect, you can just mix up all of your colors and put them on here however you want. And you'll notice we're getting a little closer to the end of our wire here. I'll show you how to add on your second piece when we get a little bit shorter section here. Right, so I'm going to add another bead. Bend the wire. And then wrap. Looks like I'll be able to add maybe one more bead. And then we'll bring in a new piece of wire. Maybe two, we'll see. And at this point, I'm really not counting the wraps. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. Okay. And you can scoot everything. If it looks like, you know, they're too far apart, you can very gently kind of scoot all your beads down, or you can very gently spread them apart. Okay, they're not locked in stone. So you can move everything around here. Right, I'm gonna add another. Drop that down, hold the bead, lock it in place with that first wire wrap. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and add in my second piece of wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap around about 5 times. We're going to do half of our little section of wire wraps. Okay. And I'm just going to straighten that out a little bit. I probably have enough here to add another bead, but I don't want to risk it. So I'm going to come to the back and I'm going to trim off that wire. Okay. Now I'm going to bring in my second piece. Remember, I told you to cut your wire into pieces. I'm going to bring in that second piece and I want to lay that wire. When I add a piece, I usually lay it on top of the wire wraps, a wrap or two back, and just kind of hold that tail in place there. You don't have to make it nearly as long as mine is. Okay. But then I just pick up the wire and wrap. Whoops, this one came off of the. It's kind of tricky. You want to hold it in place. Mine wants to slide around on me. Open that back up. Sit it right there. Hold on to it with your finger and start wrapping. And you want it to be as seamless as possible. And we're going to trim off the tail. Okay, so let me show you. Let me get a couple wraps in. Okay, so we're just, you can see how the double, it's sitting up. We're going to trim all that off. All that's going to be gone here in just a second. So I'm going to wrap around a couple of times. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and add a bead. That's going to make this even more stable when I go in to undo those first couple of wraps and trim off. So I'm going to leave it just like that. I'm going to pick up a bead. Okay, so picking up, oops, pick up a bead, drop that down, right? Okay, bend the wire, and lock that in place with a wrap or two. Okay, now I'm going to stop messing with that for a second. I haven't finished my wraps, but I need to come in here and deal with my little section where I added the extra wire. So you can see my tail. I'm going to just very, very gently unwrap. And you can see the little space that's in there. I'm just going to slide everything over. You see how I did that? Just slide everything over. That's going to make it look as seamless as possible. Once you have slid everything over, then come back in again with your cutter tool and trim off. If I can get in there. Okay. I need my sharp cutter. There we go. Okay. You can come in with your pliers and kind of push it down if it wants to stick out. And that's on the back. On the front, it's as seamless as you are going to be able to get it. You really don't even notice that I've added wire there. And if you're that close and noticing that tiny little amount, then you're just being too nosy. No, I'm kidding. But what I mean is from a distance, you're not ever going to notice that there is a break in the wire here where one wire stops and one wire starts. In the end, nobody will ever notice that little transition right there. Okay, so now we're just going to keep going because we've got a fresh piece of wire. We've got plenty to work with. We're going to finish out the wraps here. Whoops, sorry, you guys. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to keep hitting and knocking you guys around. I don't want to make anybody seasick here. Okay. Sliding everything over, making sure it hasn't traveled on me, right? And now I'm going to pick up another bead and we're just going to keep going. All right. I'm going to add 2 more of this kind of medium purple color, and then we are going to transition into the pink. So I've added the bead, I'm holding it in place, bending the wire. Bring that wire through and do our wraps. Okay. Now I'm ready to add another bead. And scooch everything over just a little. Pick up a bead. Drop it down. Okay. Hold it in place. Give the wire a bend. Keep holding on to it as you make your initial wraps. And I'm kind of holding everything in my hand, not everything, but a big section of those beads. I'm really holding all of those in place because remember here at the top when we started, these I was holding on to because they will spin. Well, now that we've added a new piece of wire, these first couple of beads are going to want to spin again, just like the ones at the very beginning. So I'm making sure to hold on to them so that they don't go anywhere until I've got a few more beads added and they are a little bit more stabilized. So all of these beads and wire wraps are kind of working together to hold everything in place. They're not just decorative. They are all kind of doing a little job. And as always, if your wire wraps are too far apart, you can come in with your pliers, right? And just very gently squeeze those together, right? There's no reason why you can't use your tools for things like that. Definitely doesn't mean that you're not doing a good job. You know, use those tools. They're there to use for your benefit. All right, so I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the dark purple. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of this kind of medium purple. I'm going to transition into the pink. Okay, so I'm gonna use, I'll just go ahead and set aside 2 of these pink, and that probably won't be enough to go all the way around, but that's okay. We can pick up and use some more of the darker ones as well. So drop the pink one down, holding it in place, wrapping it around. Okay, and we're just kind of working our way around the swirl. It takes a little time, but I feel like the results are definitely worth it. You'll notice these little wire wraps, see there's some spacing here. So I'm going to come in with my pliers, just kind of squeeze them together. And I did want to point something out too. Let me get all of these wraps in here, and then I want to point out something that may be happening to you that I kind of mentioned could happen at the beginning. So as we're working, you can see how I'm creating a larger space in here where I've been holding on and also kind of pulling on this side over here as I'm adding my beads. I'm kind of pulling my shape out. Not much, but you can see how it really is starting to open up here. So I'm not too worried about it as I'm working because it's still going to move and travel on me a little bit. But as we get all the way around and get all of the beads added, we can go back in and kind of coax this again back into that shape that we want. So I don't want you to get distressed if all of a sudden you've kind of pulled it out of the original swirl. You can always get it back into that shape again. So don't worry. Also, something else is you may need more wire or less wire, right? In the original materials list said you're going to need about 2 pieces of this 24 gauge wire that are about 36 inches long. You may find that you need more wire than that. You may find that it didn't take nearly as much wire, and all of that is going to be dependent on how big your swirl is, you know, how much space you put between each one of the beads. So the materials list is just a general guide as far as, you know, your wire measurements, because you really could make this same swirl twice as big with twice as much wire, right? You can make it however you want it to be. So don't get hung up on the details in the materials list so much. I think I may actually need another piece of wire. I don't know. We're going to see. So I'm just adding more beads going all the way around. Okay. About ready to add another bead. It's funny, I'm so congested to see the closed captioning and the words are not exactly the ones that I'm saying. And I know that the congestion is part of it. My Southern accent is definitely not helping, but the congestion has definitely changed the words on me a little bit. Okay, we're going to add another bead. Okay. 10 wraps between, or 1/4 of an inch. And the 1/4 of an inch measurement is not between the beads up here in the middle, but more between the beads down here on the actual component. Does that make sense? I hope it does. And I'm really just eyeballing it. 10 wraps is going to give enough room to these larger rondelles so that they're not crowding each other. They all have their own little individual space. I just didn't want to overcrowd. And I'm not counting my wraps. Some of you are. I'm not counting. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. So some of them may have 1 or 2 extra wraps or less. It's just a general guide. Keep saying. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This will be the number 6 of the light pink color. And then I'm going to transition again back into maybe some of the lighter purple again. And I'm going to need another piece of wire. I don't know if you noticed, but my second piece of wire has ran out. So I'm going to cut another piece of our 24 gauge wire, which means, let's see, I'll add 1 more bead. Should I add 1 more? Yeah, I'll add 1 more bead and then we'll add another piece of wire on. I think it's good for you guys to see how to add the wire, because I know that this is not going to be the only wire project that you are going to have where you're going to run into the same issue where you need to add wire. Actually, let's not use this little tiny piece. I'm afraid I'm gonna run out. So I'm gonna back up just a couple of wraps. Being a little too ambitious, we're going to go ahead and add it right here. So I'm going to come in with my cutter tool, trim off what we had left. Okay. And I'm going to cut myself another piece. Okay. And again, we're going to start out the same way. Okay. So I'm just laying that wire on the wraps, a couple of wraps back. I'm actually going to wire wrap over the top of those wraps. Okay. And then go right into my pattern, and we'll come back and unwrap those, right? So that it will look seamless. Because it looks kind of funky at the moment, but we're going to fix it, right? My wraps, I'm going to do 1 more wrap, add a bead. And then we'll come back and trim off that wire. Okay. And I'm working in a small area here. So you can see I'm going to kind of move this outer edge out of my way. I'm not making a huge adjustment, but I am just kind of pulling it out of the way just a little bit so that it's a little bit easier for me to get my wire in here. Be mindful of any of the little loops and kinks that your wire wants to make. Those are always a pain when you're using long sections of wire, but it's just kind of, there's really no way around it. I think everybody deals with those. Okay. Section round. Couple more wraps, and then I'll go back to where we added. Okay. Also kind of gives us an opportunity to look at where we are. We're getting really close here. Just a few more beads to add. And these last beads, they're going to be a little tricky because of the small area that we're working in, but just go slow. You'll see it's not any harder. You just want to be a little bit more careful. All right, so I'm going to unwrap back here where we added our wire, right? Push all of those together. Looks pretty seamless on that side. That's what I'm going for. I'm going to come back here to the back, trim off the excess. If I need to come in with my pliers to kind of push it up against the surface of the component, right? And then when we look at it, it looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Nobody will notice. Nobody's going to notice that at all. Okay. I'm going to do 1 more wrap and then add another bead. Okay. Drop the bead down, bend your wire. Okay. Now we are going between here we're working in this little space. That's why I say you got to go a little bit slower here because we don't have that big open area to do these wire wraps in. And you may find that they don't want to line up in here because you're working in such a tight area. So use your tools. Bring those wire wraps closer together. I can't wait to see the ones that you guys create. Be sure to use your hashtags, make it with Michael's, with the hashtag Beadalon, so that we can see the awesome sun catchers that you guys are going to create. Because I know you guys are going to do an amazing job with this. You always do. I'm always amazed at the creations, because you guys always tend to put your own spin on things, and it's really awesome to see. All right, I've got more of these lighter purple. Drop down, hold in place. Well, it looks like we're going to have room for maybe 4 more beads, and then we'll be ready to finish this. I'll show you how to add our little heart dangle to the bottom. And how to kind of bring it back into its original shape as well, because mine definitely has kind of worked its way out of that original swirl. A lot of pulling and pushing that happens when you're doing your wire wraps around, so that's why that happens. Okay, come in and clean up those wraps with my pliers. Oops. All right, I'm going to add, let's see, I think I'll add, let's go back to the dark purple. Put the bead in place, hold it, your wire, and then do your wire wraps. Very, very close to the end. Uh-oh, I got wrapped around some beads. Again, I'm feeling that spiral kind of losing its shape a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of reset, keep going. The last couple of beads are definitely the most tricky. Okay, one more wrap around here, and then we will add another bead. Bring up here. All right, gonna add another bead to this. Looks like we maybe 2 more beads after this one that we attach, and then we'll be done. Thanks for hanging around. I know this is a lot of repetition, but in the middle of the repetition of the wire wrapping, number one, you're getting good practice in your wire wrapping and doing this, but in the repetition and working our way around, getting to see how to add a new piece of wire is definitely a skill that you'll use in other parts of jewelry making. If you do a lot of wire wrapping and, you know, you run out of a piece of wire, that same technique can be used in a lot of instances where you need to add wire. So I'm glad that I was able to get to show that to you, not once, but actually to show it to you twice. It's a good skill to have, because it never fails. At least once in your jewelry making life, you will be in the middle of a project and will not have enough wire. It happens to everybody. So to be able to add a new piece of wire in a as seamless as possible way is definitely knowledge worth having for sure. All right, so I'm going to add one more of the dark purple. Drop that down. Okay. And wrap. You can see kind of pulling those wraps out, because now I'm kind of utilizing this little space here instead of what I was doing before. I'm taking advantage of this open area to do my wire wraps a little bit easier. And we've got room for one more bead. I'm going to make it one of the pink ones, and then I'm going to finish this off with a few more wire wraps just so that it really kind of makes it even all the way around. Okay, so I'm ready to add that bead. Drop that down. Okay, set it, hold it, and then wrap. Okay, so I'm just gonna fill up, maybe not the entire rest of the wire, the large thick gauge wire, but I am gonna put plenty of wraps in here, just so it doesn't look like an abrupt stop, right? I don't want it to have that unfinished look to it. Could I have added another bead at the end? I could. There probably was enough room, but I don't want to push it. It would be my luck. It wouldn't come out, and that bead would sit funny. So I'm just going to leave it just like it is. All right, so there are some wire wraps. I've got just a tiny little piece of this thick gauge wire left. I'm going to come to the back, trim off the leftover wire, and if you want to, you can trim off some of this, get it close. I wouldn't cut it right up next to the wraps, but you can get kind of a little bit closer if you wanted to. I'm going to leave mine. I am going to bring it around here and look at it, let it lay flat, take a good look at it and see like where I can adjust to kind of bring that spiral back. Just slow, gentle movements to bring it back into the shape that I want. Okay. Now, our center is this loop, right? It's not going to be over here. It won't be over here. It's going to hang from this loop. So that is going to be considered your center. So you want to start at your loop and look down here. Where is going to be a good place to hang our heart? And since I don't have a definite little center area here, I'm going to kind of separate my beads out down here just a little bit. And I'm going to call this section right here. That's where I want to hang my heart, right? You just want to eyeball yours and kind of figure out, try not to go too far one way or the other. Get as close to the center as you possibly can. And just kind of remember, that's the section right there where I want that heart to go. So here is one of the hearts off of that card. They're so pretty, so pretty. So I am going to use one of our little short pieces of 22 gauge wire. Okay, remember we needed 2 of these, and I'm going to wire wrap this, and I need to wire wrap it directly on. If you want to use a jump ring, you can, but I don't want there to be any way that this could accidentally come off of my Suncatcher. So I'm going to wire wrap mine directly on. So I'm going to take my piece of wire here. I'm going to thread my heart onto the wire, and I'm not going to bring it to the middle so much. like, I don't know, about an inch, inch and a half in to that piece of wire. And then I'm going to take the two ends of the wires together, and then I'm going to crisscross them over the top of that little indentation right at the top of your heart. See, just making a little triangle out of those two wires. One of them is short, one of them is long. The long one is going to be the one that we're going to use to wire wrap here. The short one, we are going to use, I don't know what's happened. Oh, there are my other pliers. Okay. We're going to use it to start a little wire wrap. So I'm going to take that short wire, my pliers, I'm going to bend it out that direction, right? And I'm going to wrap it around our long wire. And I'm not actually wrapping up and down, right? I'm kind of wrapping around in a spiral. This is going to create just like a little platform. It almost looks like a bead spacer. Okay, I'm going to come and trim off the wire. You can do a regular wire wrap if you want to. But just these days, I've been kind of drawn to that kind of look. Looks like a little slouchy sock, right? Your sock is all mushed down. And I'm going to take another one of these rondelles and I'm going to drop that down. Okay. And now I'm going to wire wrap, but I want to wire, I'm going to do a wrapped loop, but I want to wrap it directly to our Suncatcher. So I'm going to grab the wire with my chain nose pliers here, and I'm going to bend the wire over the top of those pliers. Okay, take those away. I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers. Now my loop needs to be a big one because it's got to clear the surface area of this 14 gauge wire and the wire wraps. So I'm going to come back here towards the back of my round nose pliers to make my loop so that my loop is nice and large. Okay, open that just like that. Now here's our loop. It's not perfect. That's okay. I'm not super worried about it. Before you do the wire wrapping though, we got to attach it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fingers and very gently open it up. See how I've opened up that space? That's going to make it just a little bit easier for this to slide on to this. In fact, it'll almost just hook itself just like that, right? See how easy that was? Now, the tricky part is coming in and holding all of this with your pliers. I like to come in with my bent chain nose pliers and push those two wires back together. It's going to be a little hard to see because we're working in a really small space here. That's why I say if you want to use a jump ring, you totally can. But I'm holding the wire, the loop, with my bent chain nose pliers. And I only have this little area of space right here to do my wire wraps. So I'm going to turn this and hold it as best as I can to do the wire wraps between our loop and the top of this bead. Okay. And then when I come to cut off the excess wire, just be careful not to cut anything extra. You don't want to accidentally cut any of your other wires. Okay. And now we've got our beautiful little heart that's going to hang down when this is hanging, right? You can make this even further down. You could do a couple of more dangles here, you know, do some little wrapped loops with more beads, and your heart could be further down if you wanted to. It's up to you. You can really do this however you want to. Now, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to make a little section to hang this from. And I've got one already made if I can find it, but I am going to show it to you. We'll do it. This one already has a piece of Supplemax, and that's what we're going to attach right here. But I'm going to do the wire wrapped part for you, even though this is the one I'm going to use, just so that you get all the steps here. Okay. So another one of our pieces of the 22 gauge wire, and notice I made large loops on this one so that it matches the loop that was on our heart, right? So I'm going to come onto the wire with my chain nose pliers. I'm coming down about 1.5 inches. I'm going to give that wire a bend. So we've got this nice backward 7 shape. I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers back here towards the back. So my loop is nice and big, up and over. And then I need to rotate the pliers to get them out of the way so that I can take that wire over to the other side to close up our loop. I'm going to switch hands and wire wrap underneath our loop. About 3 times. Okay, so we've basically just made an eye pin, right? Come in with your cutter, trim off any of the excess, and then thread on 2 of your beads. Okay. And now we just want to repeat that and do a loop on the other side. Now, I will show you though, our loops here are going in 2 different directions. They don't have to, but the ones in the original, the loops were going, our bottom loop is going this way because it's going to attach here, right? And then our top loop is facing us so that it hangs this way. It's not going to make much of a difference because this is going to swing and spin and do its own thing. So you don't necessarily have to worry about that so much, but just to keep it like the original, I'm going to make this other loop facing the other direction. So grabbing the wire where it is exiting the bead, bend over the top of the pliers, take those away. I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers. Again, back here on the back so that my loops are pretty close to the same size. Take that wire up and over the top barrel of the pliers, rotate so that you can take that wire all the way over, right, to get your loop. Switch hands and wire wrap in the space between the loop and the top of the bead. And then you want to come in with your cutter tool and trim off the excess wire. Once you've created this little guy, now he's ready to attach to the top of your Suncatcher here. So what I'm going to do is this loop right here that we started with, I'm going to come in with my chain nose pliers very gently. I'm going to open that just slightly, right? I'm not pulling it apart. I'm kind of twisting it open. I'm going to thread on my loop and then I'm going to come in with my pliers and close it back. And that's it. The only thing that you have left to do is just tie on a piece of Supplemax, which is this awesome monofilament. It's like fishing line almost. It's clear, invisible. You're not going to see it. And you can use that to hang your Suncatcher from. So I'm going to turn you guys around so we can look at this hanging. I'll hold it up for you so you can see how pretty it is. Okay, let me turn you around. Oops. Due to my lamp there. Sorry about that. So there you go. There is our little, our spiral, our swirl Suncatcher. It's going to look really beautiful hanging in the window with the light coming through. It's going to catch, the sunlight will catch all of those facets. It's really going to sparkle in the sun, or a really bright indoor lamp, right? I mean, nothing compares to sunlight, but if you want these hanging, you know, somewhere where you don't have a window, you can still enjoy them. Put them somewhere where you've got a bright light, you know, and let them sparkle with that man-made light if you want to. Super pretty. They look good everywhere. In fact, I would even say you could make this smaller and turn it into a pendant. You do it even smaller, make earrings out of it. This is really one of those projects that you can turn into a million different other things. So I hope I've inspired you. I hope you enjoy today's project. And I hope that you definitely walk away knowing how to add wire to a wire wrapped project. That's a great skill to have. So thank you so much, you guys, for joining me this Saturday. I will be back with you soon with another fun class. But until then, have a wonderful rest of the weekend. And don't forget to tag Beadalon and Make It with Michaels and let us see what you create. Thanks, guys. I'll see you again soon. Bye.